Welcome,
Yay!
everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to episode 35 of the ASPEC podcast series. My name is Tai Eye. I'm a PhD candidate by day, um, content creator by night, host of the ASPEC podcast series, Aero Ace Spec myself. ASPEC podcast series looks at asexuality and aromanticism through an intersectional lens. And today I have the great pleasure of talking with Ritash. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. Wonderful being here. Finally, I know there's been a bit of a countdown to this, and it's kind of in a way geeky because I can't help saying this. I'm from IT or originally, and we have seem to be on multiple platforms simultaneously. But I am, Ace, Pan, Grero. The Grero part, I think I finally resolved it for myself just a few months ago. I'm 52. I'm neurodivergent queer. I have multiple invisible disabilities. I'm gender fluid. As I said, I worked in IT for a long time in India largely, but a little bit in other countries too. Then I'm, a peer counselor for the LGBTQIAP plus spectrum, India based. I'm a writer. I write largely nowadays on various issues concerning queer people, again, mostly in India, um, you know, and I train online and offline. Earlier, for a long time, I was training on various human rights issues, whether it is gender rights, labor rights, and stuff. But lately, I'm doing more on gender and intersectionality. I speak a few other Indian languages. We consider English also our own version of English, so English is as much an Indian language. Um, yeah, and I sometimes just forget certain parts about me. Yeah, I'm also a research advisor, formally for a PhD student and also for a medical student who's doing their master's or the post graduation in medicine. Both are on queer issues. So yeah, again, lovely to be here. Tai and I connected over a year ago, almost very serendipitously, and we've had, in our little but frequent chats, blast all the time, learning so much from each other. Sharing and everything. Yeah, and cheers to that. And
Absolutely.
over to you.
I
Sorry, that was longish.
No, not at all. I thank you so much for being here today, and I have had the pleasure of appearing on Ritash's Instagram lives with wrong.org. Do you want to tell folks a little bit about wrong.org and the work you do with them?
Yes, yes. See, I told you I would have forgotten some integral part about myself. Yes, and Taiwa, you pronounce it so well. So, Rang actually means color in multiple Indian languages, Indian or let me say South Asian languages. So, Rang is a pan India intersectional grassroots queer collective. There are six of us who are, very diverse in caste, language, location within the Indian geography, and in our gender and sexual orientation, gender identity. So we are all co-founders. It's almost a completely unfunded organization. It's about 5 years old. Yeah, Taiwan is actually one, I must say, I'm very grateful and glad that whatever the weather, it's quite interesting because also they're a climate scientist. that they would be actively almost tuning into every Instagram live that we've been doing. We've been doing this for almost 2 years. The idea, well, it did not start out as a major plan. We thought, like, we should periodically, when we started around mid-June 2023, sorry, mid-2023, we was like, okay, once in a way, we should have conversations with queer people, wherever they are. That time, we were like only thinking we would invite people from India to just share about themselves, their work, because, we realize that yes, there are many community leaders who've done great work, who are doing great work, but sometimes even within the community there are some people who are open about their identity but not so public about their work, but they're doing phenomenal grassroots work, whether it's on peer mental health support, livelihoods, and or legal advocacy. Yeah, I mean, essentially things which are done in the community spaces rather than at the institutional level. So so we thought like we should have conversations with them. Then slowly these Insta lives started growing, and now people say I'm saying I, because most of the time it's me hosting. I have almost gotten bored of my voice and my face on the lives, where people were like, uh, you've gotten used to it, please do it. It's like some people are just not comfortable in front of the camera, even if they're out and open about their queerness otherwise. So yeah, and we've had people, there's so much diversity and such enriching and very moving conversations we've had with people of diverse races, sexualities, age, disabilities, caste, religion. Could be so many other social cultural markers, right? We've had multilingual lives. Basically, to share, personal narratives, first person basis, and also to say that we are queer and here and everywhere. Yeah. And Taiwai, may I ask you a thing, question?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I know that people like you, and you especially, keep encouraging me to, this is no exaggeration to say, to keep doing these lives. Okay. And even otherwise, you are doing this podcast, right? In a way, we're doing similar things, maybe at different platforms, different timings, obviously. But what has been your experience, or if you might, I'm surely there's a value add in hosting these podcasts. Yeah.
So this has been a lot of fun for me, and it's been really rewarding. There was kind of two main sources of inspiration for this podcast. The first is the work that I do locally here, running a Ace and Arrow support group, and just how meaningful those kinds of opportunities and those kinds of environments have been for my own personal growth. And now being able to run one of those and be a co-facilitator of our local Ace and Aerospace was has been so instrumental, not only for my growth, but it's just feels so amazing. And then the other source of inspiration was this Ace and Arrow raid train that I participated in last summer. And through that, I got to meet so many different A-Spec and Aerospec creators that I didn't even know existed on the platform of Twitch. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute. There's not really a space on Twitch to have these sorts of discussions. And so that I thought I would be able to bring some of my experience and knowledge coming from, the co-facilitation work that I do locally. And I've had the opportunity to speak with so many wonderful folks who are doing so many, amazing things, and just talking, bringing a really wide range of perspectives and experiences on asexuality and aromanticism. And I just really enjoy doing this podcast because it really has given folks an opportunity to not only appear on the podcast, but you know, also speak in the live chat as well and share their experiences. And it gives us an opportunity to kind of build off those discussions. Hugster Duke, sorry, I was going to say Hugster Duke asked, how long are the support groups, Tai? So they're 2 hours once a month. So the last Wednesday of every month from 7 to 9 p.m. So they're 2 hours once a month.
Oh, fantastic. Taiwai, as I said, we've been in online conversations, offline chats, so everything is online, offline, depending on our perspective anyway. But every time I'm learning and hearing and knowing so much more about you from you. Okay. Yeah. And it resonates with me so much that, like, you know, especially ASPEC, and for us, it's our life, so integral to our life. Okay. Even with all the queerness, the trans identities evolving, and yeah, is so invisibilized, so misrepresented, misunderstood. Yeah. And I'm laughing partly because it's a coping mechanism, and also sometimes nowadays, I feel it's better to be kind of try to take it in a lighter vein, though it's not joke. That why is it so difficult for people who obviously are allo and heteronormative to accept, to believe? Yeah. And nowadays I'm saying this less, but a common trick that I use to convince somebody is, oh well, aces are a minority. How many are there? I'll be like, oh, I don't know. I haven't counted. Yeah, but I know like there are a few hundreds, maybe thousands, because there are multiple support groups in India itself, online, offline, whatever. And I know we can multiply that, I don't know how many times, because there's similar things around the world, and you are one of those people who run a offline support group, which is even, needs so much more commitment and to drive, but it is so crucial. Okay. And so I was like, yeah, but it's also a vicious cycle, because the numbers are not there, because people are not visible, don't want to be visible, because people do not trust us. Yeah. Yeah. And why? Oh, you're whiny, boring, this, that, lonely, frustrated. Give me a break. I mean, is that your insecurity you're projecting on us? We are not saying that, being allo is abnormal, but it is not my normality, normalcy. Yeah. So, sexual desire or attraction, even, and even sometimes even arousal. Um, I haven't had most of the time. Rather, I'm shied away from it. And oh, that's probably because you're old. Well, I was not old always. I understood this about myself before I could articulate or find vocabulary or community. But maybe in my teens, when actually supposed to be the hormones are playing this thing, and oh, prudery. Why are you giving explanations on my behalf? Or, again, um, we're not talking about all aces and arrows, but it is largely the experience of an ace anywhere. And I'm sure even if we went to the poles or Antarctica or underground or underwater, if we found aces, the experiences, the emotions will all be if not identical, fairly similar, which is why it is so easy to relate. Yeah. Okay. All these diversities are there. But your ASM is, wow, we have so much in common. It is like, great. So, Taiwai, I mean, I'm so happy how, um, you are affirmatively, yeah, because that is your, right? But the support groups which we are either part of, which we co-lead or lead or whatever, um how do I mean, obviously, you can reveal what you can. What do they mean to you as a person coordinating or holding it, but also to the people who are part of them, right? Whether they're there for the last few months or the first time, or yeah.
So, from my experience, running these support groups, we're one of the only organizations, in this region with a support group for ASPEC folks. And when we, go to Pride festivals, when we go visit, schools and, go out into the community, it's been absolutely amazing to see how many folks have said, "Oh wow, I'm Ace, I'm Arrow, and I've never come across something like this before. There's nothing like that out there." It's just so hard to find spaces dedicated to, the lived experiences of asexuality and aromanticism. And being a participant initially in this support group. So, to give a little bit of background, this support group actually started as an online kind of meetup. And about a year into me joining as a participant, it merged with the organization that I'm now a staff member of and run the space at. And around that time, the leader, the facilitator of the group stepped down, and I took over, kind of leading the group. And then we had the opportunity to bring on a second co-facilitator, and it's being a part of that group really helped me feel affirmed in my own lived experiences, because as a gray ace, there's a lot of erasure that happens
Oh,
all
sure.
across the board. And coming to realize that, asexuality absolutely is a spectrum, absolutely has this broad diversity of experiences that fall under this umbrella, has been really helpful for my own affirmation and my own understanding of my identity.
Yes, actually, it feels like you've hit the nail on its head, because, yes, people like us who, hold space for others, we're human. We have our own, challenges, and have our journey, which seems to be continuing all the time, self discovery, rediscovery, acceptance, rethink, revisit, whatever. Yeah. Yes, it gives us so much healing and affirmation, right? Like, people, when they tell me, oh, like, it's wonderful, it's so good you're doing this, you're giving back. And many times I'm offering pro bono, because young people in crisis situations, and India is forever a developing country. So we have lots of people who are financially pretty marginalized. So queer person, very old or very young, plus coming from a small town, then financial challenges would largely be high, okay, apart from social rejection. So but every time I talk to somebody, yeah, as you say, not only that I find affirmation in what I do, but also that it is so important to offer, because there is never enough support for people, especially queer and trans people, and more importantly for ace folks, aero folks, aspect folks, yeah, and who almost always are neurodivergent or neurodivergent queer, as we might call it. Yeah, and also that, uh, you know, much as people can be imperfect, and sometimes queer counselors, queer support providers themselves, can be, not very empathetic and stuff, and for various reasons. It's not at all a judgment, but you know, still that whole thing of having lived our lives like that makes so much difference when people reach out, and obviously that's the reason also they reach out, right? And so much so, like, sometimes in casual ways, um, meetings or whatever, if I just reveal I'm ace, sometimes again for no reason or in a very unplanned manner, suddenly I would find somebody, if not openly or loudly, they'll quietly come up to me, or if it's an online thing, they would DM me, you know what, you said you're ace, and I'm so grateful. Now I also felt like sharing with you. And the thing is, in these spaces, in, of course, the queer spaces or the mixed queer spaces, I might call that, yeah, is ness, yeah, and aeroness, and as you say, more so when you say grey row or whatever, like they'll be like, ace itself is so difficult to understand. Now you people are saying spectrum, yeah, are you really queer? Why should we prove it? To whom? Right, Tyler? What do you think?
It is a huge challenge. A lot of, queer spaces have been very um, exclusionary towards the ace and arrow community, unfortunately. And I think it arises because of this compulsory sexuality that we see in society. Even within, the broader queer experience itself is still very much, you know, driven by compulsory sexuality and the assumption that everybody desires to be in a coupled sexual and romantic relationship. And as ace and arrow individuals, we very much have this different relationship to, sexuality, to romanticism than most other folks in the queer community. And that, I think, causes a rift or a challenge because our experience is so inherently different, and we have such a different perspective on what relationships mean to an Aller person, for example.
Yeah, that is so important what you just said. I mean, sort of summarizes, yeah. But because relationships, that's the other thing, QPR, whatever, platonic, yeah, romantic, pan romantic, aromantic. I mean, yes, labels, terminology have meaning, have their significance, but they need not be the be all and end all, right? Uh, every relationship is unique, and for the people in the relationship, it is for them to figure out and what or how, and if they want to even define it. Yeah. And it's the same for us, right? Uh, they'll be like, oh, you have a partner. I mean, one of this is, I think maybe you already heard this from me, but just for the benefit of people who are listening now or later. Okay. A few years ago, yeah, just into the first lockdown, which was global, I was invited, and along with a couple of other aces, all AFAB, but none of us actually identify with our gender. So essentially, we are all also under the trans umbrella, non binary. We were like all three of us come from so much diversity in the three of us, and we never knew each other. We didn't even know of each other, and whatever they tried to, or however much they tried to connect us before the webinar, um, somehow it never worked out. They were like, okay, fine, let's see, we're taking a chance and stuff like that. Three of us, yeah, one of the most enjoyable, memorable experiences of talking online. Yeah, we were talking with each other, to each other, and also addressing questions. And it was like as if we've known each other for ages. Yeah. So, right. And and the questions which were coming. See, people can, um, try to educate themselves. But somewhere, even without us having to say, you have to draw your boundaries, right? And they just kept asking. Many of the questions were stuck. Uh, Again, in a very unplanned manner, I said something about having a partner or being in a long-term relationship. Oh my gosh. So people just could not or did not want to understand and accept that it is possible to have a partner without a sexual relationship. And suddenly the whole thing, I mean, my partner is heavily neurodivergent, uh, talks as less as possible, hardly socializes. For them, A means asocial. Okay. And so they would definitely, even if I mention them, it's just about this much. Okay. And I was like, I'm not going to prove to you, but why does every relationship have to be defined by sex? I mean, romance is one thing that itself, need not be right. But they were like, "Oh, aren't you denying that person?" I'm like, I mean, there are two more people in this conversation. Yeah, so let us talk about our experiences. Why are you stuck on my partner, right? Has your partner accepted you? Yeah, well, at that time it was like we were together for some 18 years or something. I can never recall exactly how long we've been together. I say long enough to forget how long. They're like, oh, aren't you denying? So sad. Oh, that's very compassionate. They were like being charitable to me on my partner's behalf. Okay. And then by chance, again, I let it slip that my partner is ace. Oh, okay. That is why, you both found each other because you could not find anybody else. And I probably did not say that time because, I was trying to get off that particular, subtopic. But I also say, actually, when my partner and I met, we knew, I think, individually for each other, but we never discussed aceness because, excuse me, even just as if I might say 10 years ago, we've known each other from 2002, but even 10 years ago, ace was not known, asexuality was not articulated, but that never, ever meant that asexual people were not there. Asexual people were there as long as all humans were there. Okay. And they are there. And we are there. Aceness is there in multiple beings. I never tire of saying this. Okay. And, but first of all, that is, even if we know and we know the terminology and everything, that's not the same thing that you're going to be discussing all the time. And, uh, even if two people come together because of being ace, again, it's their choice. Or one is ace and allo. Yeah, like for instance, we have the well-known ace allo podcast, and I know other people who are in similar relationships. Right? I mean, why should that is where I say can enlighten yourselves, but just draw boundaries for yourself. Yeah, like if you cannot believe, like whatever, read up, interact. Now there's never a dearth of information. Now we always say in our IT world, or ICT world is every time and everywhere there's information overload. So if you still cannot believe, it's not because you're unable to understand, you just don't want to understand, I call it uh, maybe it's an allo block or an ace block, but whichever way you see it, right, Tavi? Sorry, this has been a longish point that I made, but yeah, right. I mean, relationships are for people to decide and define, right?
It's not for others to define the relationship. Every relationship, as you said, is unique, and it's those in the relationship that get to decide what that relationship looks like. And that's why I've always, for the last several years, been a big fan of talking about, many of the things that are brought up in, the relationship anarchy umbrella. Because Andy Nordgren basically says in this framework that relationships should be defined by those in the relationship, not be decided by whatever societal norms tell you that relationship should look like. And I think,
Yeah.
inherently as Arrow folks, we, experience relationships potentially, a little differently than, allo folks. We very much question those societal norms just, based on our lived experience. So I often find a lot of ace and a lot of arrow folks either intuitively or explicitly adhere to a relationship anarchist approach because it very much aligns with how we as ace and arrow individuals experience relationships.
Yeah. A very, again, vital insight that you said. And also, it is just like, there is no standard for a parent child relationship, right? There is no a benchmark for friendships, right? And so, similarly, uh, for aces also, okay, it is for us to even decide what is a relationship, what, steady, constant, long term, short term, uh, parallel, whatever. Yeah, right. I mean, we are not half as stressed about that as someone the alpha seems to be about us. Yeah. And again, not only are we not abnormalizing somebody, although actually for us an aloe is abnormal, or rather not our normal, okay? And we don't even ask, we don't question, right? But that does not mean we don't care. It is just that because, right? And so similarly, no one needs to justify, explain, right? Unless, of course, they need someone to intervene, okay? So, I mean, why even should aces and arrows be like? And I've heard where people, obviously, I look where it's like, oh, these people say they're ace, but they are in relationships, right? So, okay, and what? And then, oh my gosh, they say they do not have sexual attraction. Then there's demisexual. There's this again. First of all, ace is a spectrum. Asexuality is itself very diverse. Okay. And it is for us to decide or not decide or describe or not define or not. Yeah. How our aceness is. Yeah. Isn't accepting so much easier than questioning? Right. I mean, I'm like, I have barely figured out myself and accepted how and why, unless, of course, I have to provide counseling support. Yeah. And there also, there's a way of getting only the necessary information. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, why would I? And it's also like when aces reach out to me for support, they'll be like, and which is fair, yeah, because when people are heavily neurodivergent, queer, and also not finding somebody who like they can resonate with and need support, obviously they feel like, even if you take a tablet or a syrup when you're unwell, it takes time for it to act on you, right? So similarly, mental health, is like that. Counseling therapy is like that. It takes its own time. Okay. And it is different for different people. So, expecting us to make definite decisions for them, and or, just term that and define seems to be the easy way out for them. But actually it's harmful. It's just also unethical because then they would try to uh, sorry try to restrict themselves, or or to that kind of what we would have said is aceness, or being panro or grero or whatever. And then it'll be a problem because this is our solution for them, right? It's like our blueprint. And the more you risk, and it's very difficult. That's why, like, I start my counseling sessions telling people that, first of all, if they're coming for them for the first time, that this is how it will go. Okay. Yeah. um, if it doesn't work for you, I can't uh, do anything much about it. We'll do our best to make the session or this kind of approach work for you. But this is not just the way I have been trained, it is also that because this is my lived experience, and I cannot, and you should also not make a blueprint. I'm saying this out loud because also I think hopefully it will help people understand that if they are seeking mental health support, or they're already seeking and feel that they're dissatisfied, I think this is one important thing that they need to remember. And Taiwai, if you can also give some insights as to kind of the support that happens in the peer support group, like y'all converse with each other, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So neither myself or the other co-facilitator have any, specific training as, a mental health counselor. We bring our lived experiences as ACE and Arrow individuals. I have taken on my own accord a mental health first aid training. It was a 2-day training related to, um, you know, uh, first aid for suicidal individuals. But beyond that, I don't have any formal training as a counselor. But what I do have is a lived experience as an ACE, as an Arrow individual. And through that, I want to create a space where, ASPEC folks can come to a space that I try to make as inviting, as non-judgmental as possible. I do understand that as a white mask presenting individual, that space inherently, I bring my own biases. I can't be perfect. And it's not a perfect space, but that's basically how I try to approach it. I bring my lived experiences to the space, and I give folks the opportunity to share their lived experiences, share the struggles they may be going through, and create an environment where it's okay to talk about those sorts of things. Because for many folks, they don't have any other space where they feel safe to talk about their lived experiences as ACE folks, as Arrow folks, and the struggles that that creates in a highly sexualized, sexually focused society.
Oh, yes. Wonderful. I think more and more everywhere. And and I hear this not just from queer people, but many marginalized groups. Yeah, like peer support helps immensely. Like, that whole thing about whatever the other all else being different instead of all else being common, that just one commonality, right, means so much from a lived experience, especially if it is like, marginalized within the marginalized, invisibilized within the invisibilized, right? Like we aspects have it, right? And like you're right, although for me, my thing was an actual counseling training or other, yeah. Um, and I've been through certain other therapy courses too. But the this kind of training and this kind of support groups, what you're having and hope wherever else they are actually so much more affirming, reassuring, comforting. Yeah, because many times, as was saying, that even among queer trained therapists, queer affirmative, there are very few who are ace affirming. Yeah. And the easiest for them, you know, unfortunately, the longer they've been in that profession, right, uh, as psychiatrists or, clinical psychologists, therapists, whoever, whoever, uh, easiest for them to say, oh, you're missing out on something fundamental to life. Well, what? Okay. I mean, it may be fundamental in a very majoritarian sense. Yeah. So if we use these words, they'll be like completely as if you're philosophizing or being just stubborn or whatever. You're denying yourself, Well, okay. Tell me about this. Even people who are hypersexual 24/7, they are not doing it, right? So why do you think uh, it is possible, it is not possible for someone to not have it? Yeah. And to actually not medicalize or pathologize it. Yeah, that's the other major issue, right? Oh, it's a hormonal dysfunction, mental health, neurodivergence, love, libido. Yes, I am not as because I am neurodivergent or I'm not neurodivergent because of ACE. Both are equally important aspects of me. I need to, yeah, pay attention to, but they are not causative. Okay. And that is so simple for us, but again, it seems like an impossibility, and which is why they don't want to accept. And uh, and I'm hearing, and I remember you've said, and I've heard from some of our friends in the UK and elsewhere, that in again the advanced developed countries, where especially Canada, UK, and some parts of Europe, where state or public health is supposed to be available, unfortunately, is very rarely ace affirming, right?
I've had first-hand experience of a doctor basically writing in my medical file that I am, I have sexual dysfunction because I disclosed that I'm ace to them. And so I basically, I've had that first-hand experience of being judged by the medical profession, which has this very pathologizing perspective on asexuality, unfortunately, and it still continues to this day.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry to hear that. I remember you shared this, but every time you say this, like I get so on one side outraged, but I also feel very pained because I can feel it. And I've had a similar experience with I mean, whether they're in psychiatry, gynecology, whatever, I think it is bad if they say it, and unhesitatingly, right? And uh, because I mean, actually, there's a power imbalance, right? And the whole thing about ethics and professionalism, responsibility, accountability doesn't seem to hold. I mean, how dare they, right? They just very coolly, and unfortunately, that is almost irreversible, right? They write something like this, and now with everything being easily accessible everywhere, right? And as you said, like it'll be there forever, and it's almost, and because like I said, the more they experience, I think the more as you say, judgmental and rigid they are. And of course ego comes into play, that oh my gosh, I know everything and you have come to me, right? I mean, yeah, and unwilling to unlearn, relearn. And I mean, of course there are exceptions, but yes, why should it be an exception that, in such a responsible and a fundamental profession, that people are so, yeah, and that's sad. And at this moment, I want to also say, because I'm also the supporting co-founder of the Intersex Human Rights India Network. In the sense, I say supporting because I'm not intersex myself, but I'm one of the two supporting co-founders, because again, it's an unfunded pan-India, very closed collective of it's about over 6 years old. And yeah, that's also another thing. Sometimes I say, like, aces and intersex people, at least in my experience, or sometimes we tend to bond a lot more, because we are almost equally pathologized, misrepresented, invisibilized, even within the queer community. We don't even others, right? And also, 86 people seem to get aceness so much faster and so much better than anybody else. I mean, this is again coming from about 8 or over 8 years of very close association with the intersex community. It started as a professional association, but it's become much beyond that. And again, it'd be like, oh, about 1.7 to 2% of the global population are intersex, but where are they? Oh, you have a network. Why is it not open? Excuse me, because of such questions, right? I mean, because when we all are so hypersensitive to nonverbal cues and communication, right? And much of this is again coming not because people don't know, but because they don't want to trust and accept that it is possible that intersex people are also so many. And yes, there are so many variants among, yeah, the broad differences with sex development. I will not use the other word, the H word, and the other word, a very pathologizing term, which is there in the International Classification of Diseases, the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual. It's changing, the psychiatric and psychologists, professional bodies in many countries, including India, say they will not use terms, pathologizing terms, but unfortunately, they just continue to use. And and which is why, I mean, this conversion therapy. Oh my gosh, what is therapeutic about it? I don't know. And it's such a misnomer. Try why? In India, the law just calls it professional misconduct. Okay. Such an understatement, right? A very harmful understatement. Yeah. Because it's like, and this unfortunately is not just for races or for intersex people, but conversion therapy is used, but you can't prove it because it's often used by mental health professionals and here and there by endocrinologists. Yeah, who just prescribe hormone therapy. But there's nothing therapeutic. This is not the HRT for people who transition. And you call it professional misconduct. It is not even a rap on the knuckles. I don't know how it is in Canada, but oh gosh, conversion and corrective therapy. Oh, what is therapeutic and what is this correction that they're trying to
Nothing at
do?
all therapeutic about it. Absolutely. And unfortunately,
Yeah,
the ace community as well is targeted by it very frequently.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's tragic. Yeah. And ACE is so much more because see, for others, it's like something different and, they're just deviant. Okay, for somebody who's queer or trans, but allo. For ACEs, we're completely, right, like out of their reach, kind of, we seem to be. So, like you say, dysfunction, lack, yeah. I mean, which is why I stopped saying lack. Been saying absence of sexual desire, hormone, I'm sorry, attraction, whichever, right? Because lack seems to be a shortcoming, a flaw, right? And nothing wrong with that word as such, except in the way it is misinterpreted. Yeah, so terrible. And yes, and hypersexualization, compulsory sexualization is there everywhere. Yeah, in everything, right? And they're like, oh, I mean, it's so silly that, see, that we have to make a point about, you know, Valentine's Day is actually very triggering for us, right? So it's like as if we are out to spoil someone's fun. Oh my gosh, we are not. We are just putting it out there. That's how it is for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not saying stop Valentine's Day. Don't, force it on us.
Exactly.
Okay?
I I jokingly say, well, half jokingly, half seriously, refer to Valentine's Day as cheap chocolate Eve because to me, I don't give a f about it. I would rather just consume a bunch of chocolate
Oh, that's a
personally.
cute thing. I should. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I will remember. Oh my God. Yeah, I know. And so people, I think they say Valentine's Day somewhere
Yeah,
because they're like about being
yeah,
pals. So, which
yeah,
is, I think, fun, wordplay. I mean, also, I think Aero Awareness Week comes somewhere around that
yeah.
time,
So
right?
they purposely
Mm.
have Arrow Week starting the day after Valentine's for that exact reason, as a very visual, contemporaneous reminder of, hey, look, there are folks for whom romance is not part of their lived experience. It's not something that they experience. It's not something they're necessarily looking for. And it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah, yeah,
they
sorry, sorry.
purposely put it starting the day after Valentine's Day to be a very contemporaneous reminder of that.
Oh, yes, yes. Thanks, because I always forget whether it is on that starts on 14th or it starts on 15th, right? I was like somehow thinking it's either starts on 14th or 16th, but yes, it starts on the day after, right? Good. It's a way of, claiming our space, our voice without exactly spoiling someone's fun. Because
No.
it's also an interesting twist to that. In India, especially, and again, the South Asian society, a part of which actually traces its origins back to colonialism, because so much in our lives is about colonialism, right? So, they used to say Victorian prudery and all that. And the easiest people to target are, aces, arrows, right? Oh, you're being proved. Yeah. Or otherwise abstaining and whichever. So, well, but then when Valentine's Day became this part of common discourse, whatever in India, when the right wing Hindu party, I mean, it's sad, it's such a mockery of democracy that they want to mix religion and everything, and of course caste. They started cracking down on this, right? So apart from queerness being an urban fashion, Western import, all that blah blah blah, it is ridiculous because we have indigenous queer and trans subcultures for I don't know however long again as humankind has been in every part of the world. Okay, and so much so in India and South Asia, right? So the next thing that they've been targeting is Valentine's Day. Okay. Oh, you can't express in public. It's not Indian culture. It's, oh my gosh, it's so stupid. So that is why we clarify that when we are saying Valentine's Day bothers or triggers us, it is definitely not to police somebody. It's definitely not being moralistic. Yeah. It's just that it doesn't make sense to us. But hello, we are not emotion free or, loveless beings. Okay. So, again, also because that's the common misinterpretation. And so much so with this much linguistic diversity in India, it is not easy to explain asexuality without using English terms. And yeah, that's why it makes it asexuality, aromanticism, and like, how can you live your life without that? That's the fundamental question which allows this thing because actually, if they look into their lives, romance, sex is not the only thing they're living their lives for or by, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So why is it for heroes we have to explain that, So yeah, and I think you all also get. I mean, why am I saying you all also? I think these questions are forever arising, right? Like,
Absolutely. Comes up all the
yeah,
time on the podcast. I go on rants all the time about the fact that, these things started purely for commercial benefit by Hallmark has,
yeah, yeah,
exploded and become the mainstream that we should abide by.
yeah. And it's interesting you say this because we didn't know this until maybe a few decades ago that Valentine's Day and all this red and hearts and roses and all that was not a thing even in the so-called global north western countries, right? Until Hallmark took over, yeah. And if you ask me, it's so such a ridiculous monochromatic imagination of the whole thing. Uh, and I think I arrogate myself or our community to say this because we are such colorful people. One color doesn't define us. Yeah. So why is it, except as you say, for commercial capitalist interests? So if queerness is, sort of an answer to patriarchy, so is decolonization and anti-capitalism, right? These are so yeah. And I am not being either utopian or philosophical. It's so basic, so obvious that yeah. And then you say that as if we are denying or out to deny somebody something, and all the people who've fallen for that are only enriching Hallmark at their expense. Yeah, the individual expense. And some of those, basic products or whatever are so expensive,
They
right?
are. It's
Anywhere.
absurd how much, they charge for, Valentine's themed products. And the next day on the 15th, they're all, on clearance prices. because nobody else,
True,
they're
true.
not going to buy them. So it's
Mm,
so
mm, mm.
heavily driven by everybody has to buy for that one particular day.
Yeah, yeah. And the whole build up starts maybe a few weeks before, right? Like, yeah. And digitally also there's so much, and nowadays everything digital or most things digital are also not free. And yeah, and it's all about buy only. It's a good way of putting it.
Why
And
should
just
one particular day be about
mm,
romance? If, romance shouldn't be just dedicated to one particular day. There's many ways to express, romantic attraction, romantic appreciation. It shouldn't just all have to come on a particular day in the form that a card company tells us it should be.
right, yeah, yeah, that's right. So that is so important, to say that, because which is what I'm in a way meant by saying monochromatic, right? Just somebody is deciding for you, or rather someone is decided and they don't seem to change it at all. At most they will go to a bit of pink, right? And it is so silly actually. And yeah, and just one thing more, I think we are at an hour, but always there's lots to chat. But then just want to ask one thing. You're a climate scientist, and that's fantastic and so topical, right? Of course, and we having been in STEM, I don't say I've really exit STEM anytime. Uh, we know that these are the some of the most what do I call it? In a way, patriarchal spaces. Yeah, and if there is DEI, EDI, whatever, much of the time we know it is very pretentious, and yeah, and people don't care, yeah, about it actually. And it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that many of these spaces are very toxic, okay? And it's like justified, because you're supposed to be rational and you're supposed to be logical all the time, almost like that. You almost stop being a human, right? Like that. So um climate change and queerness is hardly being discussed, though it is so relevant, right? Just, your thoughts on that, if there's anything.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely say that as a queer climate scientist at most conferences, in most spaces, I cannot talk about, the fact that I'm queer. I don't feel comfortable talking about it because those environments are so inherently, I would say, lower C conservative, not capital C as in government conservative, but just as a discipline, science is, quote, conservative. You're supposed to follow this, as you said, whatever this means, rational, um, objective perspective, and you basically delude yourself into thinking that by taking this approach, you are removing all sorts of bias in your results. That is inherently impossible. No matter what you do, there will always be bias in the way that you conduct your study, in the methods that you choose. The research that you're doing is going to be informed by whatever funding agency is funding your research.
Yeah, totally. Yes, yes.
And I go to these conferences. They may have some discussion of EDI, but it's extremely performative. And there's
Yeah.
almost no discussion at all of aceness, arrowness. It's just let's put up a queer flag in a window somewhere, and that's our EDI.
Yeah. Their loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say, right? But yeah, but like again, it's more an exception. The thing that especially people who are undergoing HRT and all that, transports and all, yeah, climate change is it's impacting all of us, and directly it's no more, because how can you separate yourself from your physical environment, right? And I mean, I jokingly, say that Bangalore, yeah, where we live, yeah, it's kind of a global city because of it's like kind of being the back office of Silicon Valley. Yeah, so we have almost 2-3 seasons daily. Yeah, and it wasn't so. Yeah, and and then it's sometimes raining in one part of the city, is not raining elsewhere. So what is that? But like, so I'm like, climate change is not so difficult. You're seeing it all the time. Yeah,
It
and
also
but
it
mm,
also hits and affects the most marginalized communities the most.
yes,
The
yes,
folks that
right,
had
right.
nothing to do with its, the reason why we're dealing with, countries, small island nations,
Mm.
heavily marginalized communities that had nothing to do with the reason why we're here today. They're getting hit the hardest. And it's the big
True.
nations like the US that just continue to ignore it. And they're the ones that have, put the most into basically emitted the most. They caused the most trouble, but they pretend it doesn't exist.
Oh, yes, totally, totally. Thanks so much for saying that, because actually, who are the marginalized? Often the ones, who are racially or ethnically and caste marginalized across the world. And they are the ones who actually respected their ecosystem, nature, as though we are separate from nature. We are so much part of nature. And yeah, and animal life and plant life. And unfortunately, that's also, no, very few people, because as you say, it is the climate deniers are again the same people who want the guns, who are, as you say, the conservatives with a small c, and sometimes they are also the big
Capital
C
C
ones,
also.
because
Yeah.
capital C, yeah, right, yeah, totally. um they are the one. Uh, that whole thing, I remember a few many years ago when I started hearing about, carbon credits and all that. Like, this is copying out. Yeah, you just dump your mess somewhere on somebody who's completely unprepared to this. And many times they've dumped it by the shiploads without even telling somebody. And then, oh, it's like, I mean, what? Yeah, inanity. And they protect themselves from ICJ, ICC also persecuting them. What persecuting? You can't even question, kind of. Yeah. And as you say, that's exactly why we've got into the mess. And the most marginalized communities everywhere, the people are the ones, yeah, the islands. No, some of the Pacific islands have disappeared or are disappearing, right? Yeah, that's so.
Absolutely.
Thanks again. Yeah, yeah. So I think we can stop end here unless you
Yeah.
have something else.
No, I mean, it's perfect timing because we just went into an ad break. So we, why don't we just wait like 1 or 2 minutes? Because I
Sure,
want to
sure.
be able to, for the folks to come back from ads and to be able to say goodbye to us. So,
Yeah,
we'll,
yeah, sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. But it's been wonderful. My gosh, from where to where we went, and this is all interconnected, right? And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And who better than an AI? That's why you've seen some of the posters, right? When it's alive with an ace, I keep saying acing life, acing whatever diversity and stuff like that, right? And which is also a reason why I think the last couple of years I started using ace, and that too with a capital A,
Mm-hmm.
because okay, you want to invisibilize? Well, I will self visibilize. Right. So what else
Definitely.
to do? Yeah, yeah. And this is assertion. This is not being aggressive, right? So we have to keep justifying. I don't know why even, but yeah.
I'll just grab your social links here. So I'm grabbing the Orang Instagram. I'll also
Okay.
grab your. Do you want me to share your personal Instagram as well?
Sure, sure, sure. No problem. I'm happy to do that. Yeah. And yeah. I mean, Blue Sky, I've lately only become, but
I
it's
can grab
okay.
that
But
as
I think
well.
it's beautiful. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. See, you are among the many things that you have, what do I say, affirmatively contributed to my life. Blue Sky is one more. You kind of indirectly or directly nudged me to get there, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of folks in my circles use Blue Sky, and that tends to be the most active platform for many of the folks, you know, in the fruities and in many of the communities that I'm a part of. They tend to be very heavy Blue Sky users, and so as a result, that tends to be where I post the most.
Yeah, that's great. And again, very grateful for that to you. That because it is there in on all my devices, and I think I had an account, but I never really, because X or Twitter or whatever it is called has become overwhelming. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and all the nonsense is what do you call going viral and trending all the time over there.
Exactly. I purposely avoid the other platform formerly known as Twitter because it's just a horrible place to be. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I almost
As
exclusively
terrible as
use Blue Sky now.
yeah, good, good, great. I should, persistently do that. And I'm not going to deplatform myself from the other one, but yeah, I should just intentionally migrate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I still have my account partly because I don't want anybody to have the ability to steal my username and defame me or use it for
Mm,
nefarious purposes. So almost everybody that I've
yeah.
talked to has basically said, keep your account so that nobody can take that username and start using it for nefarious purposes. So that is basically what I've done.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So
Right.
everybody's
And
back from
yeah.
the ads now. So
Okay, wonderful.
do you want to remind folks where we can find you on the socials? So I've posted your, you know, Blue Sky. I've posted your Instagram. I've posted the wrong.org Instagram as well. Is there anywhere else that we can find you?
Um, I think this is good for now because much as I am a supporter of FOSS, free and open source software, sometimes just because for again, inevitable majoritarian reasons, I am active on Meta. So yeah, and thanks. Yeah, and then the corresponding threads also. I mean, yeah, if you have my Insta links, then you have my threads link also. And now I think automatically it reposts there, Blue Sky. And this is also, as I said, one more incentive for me to sort of um, reduce my presence on Twitter or whatever has become of it, or it's unbecoming. And yeah, and thing. Discord also, I'm there or I am here. Discord and Twitch. Anyway, I think you've shared it. Automatically, people can see. Again, Discord. I'm hoping to reactivate myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Again, you know what? Hi, Wine. You have really, really, helped me to get on all these platforms. Last year, I think I came on Discord because of this one. So I should keep returning to this. I used to actively join your Yeah, it's just a bit of the time zone things.
Yeah, I often
Okay.
have the podcasts, in the afternoon, which is the middle of the night for you, unfortunately. So that definitely
Yeah,
plays a
yeah.
role. We did have one question in the chat asking what the
Oh, sure.
P is in LGBTQIAP+. So what does the P stand for in that acronym?
Okay, great. Thank you for asking that. P is panromantic as far as I am concerned, but it can be also pansexual. Like we know, the sexual phase comes before the romantic thing,
Yeah.
though they need not be linked at all. And I think increasingly people are also using it with for pangender. So it is also my way of kind of trying to visibilize it because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, even now and internationally also, people just stop with saying LGBTQ. They don't even put a plus. But I, go on to put A and P, IAP plus,
Yeah, very
right?
good point. Thank you so much. It's often one
Yeah,
that people, kind of group in with, the bi group, but it's not. It's a completely different uh identity. And it incorporates so many other identities, pangender, panromantic. And so, it's really
yeah,
awesome that you include that on there because everything else just
yeah,
gets lumped in with the plus and nobody ever talks about them as a result.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always used to say, I hope one day the letters of the English alphabet will be insufficient. There should be that much. Yeah,
Absolutely.
right. Yeah, yeah. And I try to mention 2S again. This is not to disrespect or exclude. It's just that in the Indian South Asian context, 2S doesn't strike anybody much, so I'll have to do more explaining. But yeah, apologies for when this was going to be a global thing. And yeah, it is.
No
Yeah, because
worries.
yeah, yeah. So, but yes, for us, like I said, we have our own indigenous queer trans communities, cultures, subcultures,
Mm-hmm.
right? And which are more common across the South Asian subcontinent rather than different. So, yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, and because many of the names for them are in the local languages, the hijra is the most well known, but we do not put H for that because, again, H in some other places means something else. We don't want to confuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, right. And hijra is more a socio-cultural identity than just a queer or a trans identity. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's why. Yeah. But
absolutely.
anyway, it has been wonderful. As always, whether it's our little chats or our, today after a long time, and we've chatted for long, and so much to learn from you always. And it's just that this has been such a beautiful friendship, I must say, which
Absolutely.
I treasure. And thank you so so much. And I must also acknowledge Taiwai, has been among my greatest cheerleaders. Yeah, right, for the Instagram live. I never tire of saying that or thanking you for it. Yeah, and yeah, again, lots of love. Let us continue spreading queer joy, trans joy, ace, aero joy, joy, because we know how the world is. And
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
it has become, it is so ridiculous. And even if the laws were not being reversed, the law codes are not the ones which will give us our rights, unfortunately. Yeah,
No,
every seemingly affirmative judgment is actually performative, right?
exactly.
And yeah, and whatever democracy, human rights may say, they're unfortunately taking that away from us. And as our queer rights, our ace rights, we have to go and keep demanding them. So I think amidst all our diversity, differences, and this is not utopian, this is just an appeal, a request that let us, try to hold each other together. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank
But
you so much again for
yeah.
joining us today. And we're going to go on a raid as we do in Twitch. We're going to raid Halls Does Things. Thank you so much again. Let me just set up the raid here, and then we can
Okay.
send it off to Halls Does Things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And yeah, you whenever you post it, you can tell me, or you're going to tag me, so that's fine. Okay. Thanks a lot, I will leave now. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye now.